Welcome everyone to another episode of Follow the Light Music Review. My name is John De Laurentiis, and this is episode 8 in my album reviews series. And today we're going to be looking at an epic prog rock album that just came out on July 11th, 2025, Undoubting Thomas-In the Process of. But before we get into that, I would like to encourage you to support my channel by subscribing, liking the video, commenting below, and also don't forget to ring the bell so that you're notified when new content is added to the channel. All right, so you might be asking, who is Undoubting Thomas? Well, let's talk about it. Behind Undoubting Thomas is multi-instrumentalist and singer Tom McKeown, who was a founding member and the primary songwriter in the 1980s, 1990s progressive rock band Damascus. And I became a fan of Damascus, who released 4 independently released cassettes, and fell in love with the musicality of the band. Now, being a huge progressive rock fan, I grew up listening to Kansas, Yes, Genesis, Saga, ELP, and many others. And so I was so happy to find music that was in the style of those bands in the Christian realm. Now, I did not obtain the very first Damascus cassette, which was a 4-song kind of EP cassette that was released in 1983, just called Damascus 1. I was introduced to the band with their first full-length album, which was called Will I Find You There, which I still have my original cassette. And the cassette also came with a fold-out lyric sheet that came in here, which I was appreciative of. And this is released independently. All of their stuff was released independently. We'll talk about that in a minute. And they also released 2 other cassettes, a follow-up called Timeless, still my original cassette, and a follow-up after that called Soon the Doors Will Open. Timeless came out in 1987, and Soon the Doors Will Open came out in 1990, which is often considered the band's high water mark. Although Will I Find You There remains my favorite album by them, maybe because it was my first introduction to the band. I have like a sentimental attachment to it. And I have listened to these 3 cassettes over the years consistently since I got them in the 80s and early 90s, and we're talking it's 2025. So at the time when these cassettes had come out, I was printing a small-scale music newsletter called Rock Tower, and I have that here. I'll show you. I did an actual front cover story on them. So this was the issue they appeared in, and at the time of this issue, Soon the Doors Will Open was the most current release, so that was out. So I did a interview with them in this issue here with Tom McKeown all those years ago. And the band, unfortunately, at that, shortly after that album, Soon the Doors Will Open, they became a 3-piece because guitarist and vocalist Mark Reich left. And so the band soldiered on for a little bit of time after that as a 3-piece. And they did release 3 songs in a demo. It's called Demo 1991, which were songs that they were working on for a proposed 5th album, which never materialized because David Coy, the drummer, had decided to call it quits. And, a lot of it was, he called it quits, and the band kind of just folded after that. But a lot of the reason was that the band just never caught on fire. And part of the reason was that the band could never land on a Christian record label because the Christian record labels were not looking for progressive rock. They were looking for something that would sell. And so they were kind of like too progressive for the Christian music labels at the time. And when they went to the mainstream labels, they were too Christian for the mainstream labels here. So they kind of did everything themselves, released these albums themselves, but they never kind of blew up nationally. They remained kind of a regional favorite band in their home state of Illinois and some of the surrounding states there. But again, a great body of work. And I've been listening, like I said, for all these years to these albums here. So fast forward to around 2021, I became a copy editor for Gerder Music, which led eventually to me becoming a copy editor for Retroactive Records, and that led to me becoming a copy editor to Roxx Records, part of Roxx Productions. And over at Roxx Productions, Bill Baffert, the owner, he's a huge supporter of releasing those 80s, primarily metal, hard rock cassette tapes that were coming out. And I got the idea to approach Bill Baffert. Would he be interested in releasing this body of work, these 4 cassettes of music from Damascus at his label on CD for the first time? And he was open and amenable to it. And so I took the initiative to try to track down Tom McKeown. So if I remember, I first tried to get a hold of him through an email contact through LinkedIn, and I didn't have any success there. But I found that Tom McKeown, in the intervening years since Damascus, had gone on to be a part of an Americana folk rock band called Shadowfields, which originally began as McKeown Humphrey as a duo, and then morphed into a full band called Shadowfields. So they were on Bandcamp. So I said, let me try to email him through the email contact on Bandcamp, which worked, because I contacted him and I said, would you be interested in a label putting out all your Damascus cassettes? So Tom was very interested in that. And that was somewhere around April of 2024 when this whole process began. And I think he was surprised, because I think it was a chapter of his musical history that he'd kind of forgotten about, maybe filed away, and hadn't really thought about it, because he obviously was busy all the intervening years with Shadowfields, and they did some concert dates too, or still doing concert dates, and released several albums. So all the Shadowfields and the McKeown Humphrey albums are available on the Bandcamp website. Some of them are available for download, some are available also on CD still. So you can check that out if you're into Americana folk rock. That's what that's their style of music they were doing. So it was a little different detour away from Tom's progressive rock roots with Damascus. So at the time, we were going through all of the preparations for getting these 4 Damascus cassettes out officially on CD, and I was working with Tom, and Tom was also working with Bill Baffert, and of course Scott Waters, the layout editor for all 3 of those labels I mentioned earlier, was involved as well. He came up with the cover, and Bill was also open to adding bonus material in addition to the 4 cassettes. And so I asked Tom if he would be able to finally put together and complete that unreleased 5th album, which he didn't. And I know he spent many hours getting the best possible source tapes for that. Some of them came from, believe it or not, boombox recordings of tracks that were slated for that 5th album. And when you listen back to the finished product, you'll be amazed at how good it sounds. I'm going to show you a picture of it here. It finally came out in around September, or let me see, I have it written down here. It came out September 13th, 2024. So from April to September, all the work here. Finally, the Road to Damascus, the complete anthology, came out. And as you can see, it features the 2 of the 4 songs that were on the first Damascus cassette, because 2 of those tracks also reappeared on their full-length Will I Find You There. So you get those 2 tracks. You get the Will I Found You There, the Timeless, the Soon the Doors Will Open, and then the unfinished 5th album called The Turning Tide adds in all of that. So if you do not have this reissue and you are a fan of prog rock, get on the website, get a copy of it. It's actually available not only through Roxx Productions, but it's in distribution. So I've seen it at Target and other places, so it's in distribution. So fantastic band, so happy. This was kind of like a dream come true for me to see these cassettes properly reissued, remastered, and on CD, 2 CD set in here with all the music here. And I know Tom was extremely happy to see that portion of his musical history revisited and then brought out into the light for people to enjoy. So fantastic. So this brings us to Undoubting Thomas. Now, Undoubting Thomas, I found on the when I was doing research on Tom McKeown trying to find him, I also found out that in 2019 he had started kind of like a side project called Undoubting Thomas, and there were 2 tracks on the Undoubting Thomas YouTube channel that he had done under the name of Undoubting Thomas, and they were proggy in sound. And so after the Damascus project was done, I thought to myself, well, I wonder if Tom would be interested in coming up with a full-length Undoubting Thomas album. And would Bill Bafford of Roxx Production be interested in releasing that? So talked to Bill Bafford about that. Bill Bafford gave the green light for it. And so that led into Tom starting this project of putting together a full-length album by Undoubting Thomas and getting back to his prog rock roots. So he started doing some crafting of songs and writing of songs in October of 2024. So just a month after the Damascus release came out. And he continued on the recording and coming together with these songs, writing these songs and putting it together. And that went on through May of 2025. And that ended up becoming the full-length Undoubting Thomas album. And this is a brand new, all brand new songs, 9 new songs. So it doesn't include the 2 that are on his website. This is a brand new album of new material recorded during that time frame. And I got to hear the unfinished or pre-production tracks that he sent to me, and I was blown away by it. And then he added an additional track later on called Any Wonder, which ended up being one of the singles off the album, which we'll talk about. So let's look at the album here. So Scott Waters came up with the design for this. Beautiful. You know, and the theme's kind of carried over into the back there. And then when we open this up, we have a nice booklet inside. We have some more layout work. And these pictures here go along with the song themes here. A song in here called The Mirror. And the lyrics are all here for all these songs. And there's some additional graphics over here. A song called Dark Waters and this picture going with it. Another picture there goes with that song there. Something Beautiful. And another picture there for the Another World closing track. And then on the back here, we have a picture of Tom here with the theme colors here and the credits for the album. And the CD itself carries over that theme with that cool green eye there. And again, the back cover there. So that's the album that came out July 11th, 2025. And I wanted to talk about this album here, which I am dubbing an epic prog rock journey. And Tom kind of wrote this album as a concept album, a journey of struggles and faith leading to kind of its ultimate resolution in the last song of the album called Another World. So I want to go over these songs here. The album begins with an overture, an instrumental overture that's 6 minutes long. And it has some majestic piano that builds up into this beautiful guitar melody solo with some nice drumming. And then it moves into this Kansas-like organ motif that then moves into another showcase for Tom's abilities on the guitar of crafting memorable melodies here. His guitar soloing is never showy, but it supports and underscores the music's melodic structure here. The whole overture prepares you for what's ahead by pulling you in to a dreamy and kind of lilting landscape of sound. And this is the sound of a man whose musical vision has shown maturity and growth from his Damascus days. Just a great opening track to pull you in. Then we move on to the next song called The Mirror. And this is one of 3 lengthier epics on the album. The Mirror is in 3 parts. The first part, Monster or Man, will have you thinking someone is playing you a long-lost Kansas song from the Left Overture sessions. It has, again, more of that fine solo guitar melody coupled with organ before it segues into this kind of jazzy prog groove where Tom pontificates in the lyrics. Oh, am I a monster? Oh, am I a man? Oh, or just a lost soul doing the best I can. And this kind of sets up the theme of this journey that he's going on through these songs here. So around the 3.5-minute mark, some gorgeous piano slows the pace down as Tom sings with atmospheric touches as it leads into the second part, See Me, which ponders the dichotomy between what we appear to be versus who we may be in reality. And he sings here, I am a performer when the circus comes to town, have to keep the plates all spinning or they come crashing to the ground. And then the last section, titled All Is Lost, features some incredible harmonies and some breathtaking infusions of sounds as it leads back to the opening musical theme. So, just keeps this prog rock thread going through, and it doesn't let up here as it continues on. So the next track is Any Wonder, which is the one he added last to the album. And it opens up with some keyboards in the vein of Saga with some soft vocal opening it up. This sprawling track builds in intensity as Tom leads up to the pre-chorus chorus section, which adds in a Beatlesque type flavor to it before the 3.5-minute mark. And then there's another Kansas kind of inspired musical section that lifts you up into this kind of ear candy that will have you enthralled with the symphonic prog that's there. This almost 7-minute highlight of the album was like I said, the final song he added to the set, and what a great addition to it. The chorus ropes you in with this catchy chorus. Has anyone seen? Could anywhere be? Could anyone find the world that was mine? And drums here are a great backbone here to the song. They really add to it. We'll talk about the musicians at the very end when I'm done going through the songs here. But what a great track here as well. And this was released as the second single. And this one actually, Tom put together a concept video for it, where he's kind of playing a little bit of an actor role in it. So you can check that out. I'm going to put the links below this video so you can get to the links to all this stuff. So look for that down below in the description. This moves on to Love and Life. This was the one that was released as the first single. This is a pulsating prog rocker that features a nice guitar riff as its bedrock. Some nice tasty guitar solos underscore some nice swirling harmonies. This could be Tom's Carry On Wayward Son hit single, as the song hits hard with its melody in its short 3 minutes on the album here. So that was, again, the first one released for the album, and that one I think was just an audio only one that was released by Roxx Productions. So you can check that one out too. Again, I'll put the link down below. Now this moves into a song called My Silence. Now, speaking of Carry On Wayward Son, this song features a similar catchy note-driven melody as the bass comes higher in the mix with an almost funky groove to it. This song has many musical patterns, from dreamy guitar picking to dancing solo fills as Tom sings about the importance and the power of prayer. My silence fed the enemy. He drew strength from the things I did not say. My Lord, my God, teach me to pray. And I could see this as a third single from the album. It's another one of those ones that just, it's a kind of like a faster paced rocker, like I said, in the vein of kind of like a Carry On Wayward Son, with a very infectious, stick in your brain melody to it. This is followed by a song called Save Me. So adding to his musical palette here, this song opens up with piano that harkens back to the classic sound of vintage Elton John. And it adds in choral vocals when it's singing the title of the song here. The song takes on this kind of orchestral soundscape as it pleads for salvation that saves the drowning soul. It segues into another Kansas-inspired segment here as the song is in 4 parts across its 5 minutes, moving from its emotional beginning please to the joyous third part called Sunshine. The song returns to a reprise of the opening Sinking Down section, showing the need of our constant awareness of our need for God's presence. And again, another superlative song here on this album. This goes into what I would say that is the second epic of the album, the 9-minute Dark Waters. And this is in 5 parts. It opens with a brooding opening section called Blackness. Tom sings, "I find myself in dark waters, I find myself in blackness, all alone." Then joy springs forth through a rhythmic piano melody later on in the song that's reminiscent of the band Genesis in the section called Take It Back, which layers in some more choral vocals and then slides into some more symphonic guitar soloing. This is the kind of music that recalls the days when you sat in front of your stereo, maybe at a listening party, and you, with your friends, enveloped yourself with the album that you're listening to. You know, it's kind of a lost art. This is something I grew up doing with my friends in the 1970s. An album would come out, we would all get together, and we would have like a listening party, and we'd like sit, and this is not we're sitting listening to an album or talking and doing other things. We're sitting there intently listening to the music, absorbing the music. And this is the kind of album that this would be great for. And one of the great things about the vinyl resurgences is that I'm hearing that this is kind of coming back with some people, that some of the younger kids are getting into vinyl, and they're doing that. They're getting their friends together and they're immersing themselves in the physical product of vinyl and listening to these albums, you know, because kind of music became, in the modern age, kind of fragmented. Although artists are still releasing albums, things are released on streaming, so you might say, I'm just going to get that song, or I'm just going to listen to that song. But that physical experience of having a physical product in your hand, whether it's vinyl or CD, is not there with streaming. You know, I'm sure there is probably streaming parties, you know, maybe more for video type things, but for music, not that I know of it. I'm sure some people may do it, but it's just not the same, in my opinion, that same immersive type thing that we had growing up. You know, but I used to love that and just sit there and absorb myself into the soundscapes that were coming out of the stereo. And I've always been an audiophile. I've had a stereo system, a separate component stereo system, and I still have my original Realistic Mach 2 speakers, which sound great. Realistic was part of course, Radio Shack, and they were known for putting out really high quality speakers, and I still have mine that I got sometime maybe at the end of the 1990s, and I still today, you know, will do that. I will sit and immerse myself listening to an album. Sometimes I'll turn out the lights and just absorb myself into the music, or sometimes I'll sit with the lyric book and follow along as I listen to each song. So again, this is an album that lends itself to that. So this song continues with a section called Midnight of My Life that wraps the listener up in some swirling notes, some wrenching vocals, and a strong rhythmic backbone, a bass and drums before the song crescendos into its ending notes that massage you. Those ending minutes kind of massage you into this almost wah-wah guitar washings and splashes of music that wash over you. And as the song returns to its opening theme, the song forms kind of a circle of aching desire to escape the dark waters of loneliness. You know, so what a journey of soul searching the listener is brought into, thinking about the human condition as it's laid bare of its need for union with God. This is followed by the 8th song, Something Beautiful. Now, this song is the quietest song on the album, and it serves, in my opinion, as the album's psalm. Like King David, if you think about him contemplating in old times his need for God to make something beautiful of our lives. That's a line from Tom's song. If you think about that motif, make something beautiful in my life, that he sings here, I'm reminded of Psalm 51:10, where David said, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit in me." You know, so it's kind of reminds me of that, and that's why I say this song is kind of like the psalm of the album. The lyrics have that beautiful heart and heartful and emotional plea to God to make something beautiful of my life. And the song "Spare Instrumentation" serves the song well as the piano and orchestral feel match the lyrics' passionate plea. It gives the listener kind of like a breather before the final musical journey begins, which is Another World, the third and longest of the what I call the three epic songs of the album. This final song is the longest, like I said, of the three epics, clocking in at almost 14 minutes in length with 5 parts. So it starts off with part A, How Long. The song opens with an intro, a piano, an organ, and wind sweeps of colorful musical diversity are here with guitar melody, soloing before the vocals come in, contemplating the world of hate. So kind of looking at the world today and why are we living in this world so filled with hate, which seems to play over and over like a song that remains the same and offers no escape to something better in another world. All right, so it opens up with this kind of hopelessness of how is this cycle of hate, how is this song that's kind of like a broken record repeating over and over again, how is it going to break? How are we going to break away from that cycle as it goes on here? The song has an infectious longing chorus as it leads itself into its second section, Round and Round, which again is borrowed from the Kerry Livgren's songwriting school, taking the listener on a roller coaster ride that is gliding toward the light that must be found. Right, so it may start with this kind of hopelessness, but it's not hopelessness that's just leads to despair. It's hopelessness that leads to searching and journeying, so you can find the hope that must be there, the light that must be there at the end of the tunnel here. So here the song at this part blends in some lovely Beatlesque vocal call and response, has a little bit of Steve Hackett like guitar, melodic guitar fills. Steve Hackett, of course, the one of the original guitar players of the early Genesis, who is the guitar player on my favorite Genesis album, which is Trick of the Tail. That was Steve Hackett's last album with the band. And kind of reminds me of his guitar style here, what Tom is doing here. And this builds up to this rocking section called Running and Hiding, which pulls the listener toward climbing the mountain of high expectations toward that other world that he's seeking for in this song. So some nice keyboard flourishes with a touch of Yes influences here catapult the listener into the stratosphere before the main musical motif returns, washing the listener into a fury of sound as a distant battle is fought before the return to the hope and faith of another world that awaits the seeker and becomes closer to reality. The song lifts the listener into a heavenly hope of the day when faith becomes sight and the traveler is now home in that other world. And very effectively, the album ends with this sound of bells as it fades out. So it's like that final, almost like the bells of heaven. The other world has come and has conquered the hopelessness, has conquered the world of hate. So wow, what an incredible musical journey this hour of music brings the listener through. And I have to say, honestly, if listening to this album doesn't move you, you need to check your pulse, both physically and spiritually. This is a beautiful, epic journey here. Tom McKeown has created a sonic masterpiece that not only easily finds its way into my best albums of the year list, but also seriously a contender for one of the best of the decade. Yes, it's that good. And again, prog rock is not the kind of music that you just listen to once and make a decision on. This is the kind of music, prog rock always demands several listening tos. And prog rock is the kind of music that is something that you can listen to over and over and over again and find new things and new layers. It's that kind of style of music here. So I would say get this album, find some space where you can listen to it, with your full attention on it, and just bathe in its sonic landscapes here. And like I said, as an earlier fan of Damascus, I can only say that Tom's maturity of songwriting has reached astounding heights here, and this is certainly counted as a high watermark achievement of musical excellence that can stand right alongside the band's influences that it borrows from. And I want to caution you, I did mention Kansas, I mentioned Yes, I mentioned Saga, and Genesis, if I hadn't already mentioned that. These influences are there on the album, but don't get the impression that this is just somehow a clone of those bands. This is someone who's drawing his musical influences from those sources, but he's also putting his own musical stamp of his songwriting genius to it. Again, it shares its musical palette with the listener. It's one man's vision of a journey of life and faith seen through the lens of a godly perspective that is realistic in its portrayal of life's struggles, but ultimate triumph when that other world again becomes a face-to-face reality. So I wanted to talk, I know we're at the 30-minute mark, but this album is, there's a lot to talk about with this album, but I want to give a shout out to the other musical flavors that are added to this album. So Heather Humphrey, if you remember the name, that is his partner in the Shadowfields band. She's on this album bringing choral vocals in here, as well as Gary Jackal adds some violin and viola flourishes that add more to that symphonic quality that's found in the songs. And kudos to drummer Patrick Cullihan, who does all the drums on the album. And Tom himself is a good drummer as well, but he elected here to play all the instruments except the drums, and he brought drummer Patrick Cullihan in, and he's a drummer for this album that drums in a way that never overshadows but perfectly complements the overall scope of this majestic, thought-provoking exemplar of what progressive rock music should infuse in its listeners as it dances across the listening ears of all true seekers with something that points its gaze toward eternity. So it's everything you want and more from a prog rock listening experience. So this is an easy 5 out of 5 stars rating for this one. And I would say if you can only afford to buy one album this year, make it this one. In my opinion, you will not be disappointed. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that lengthy. If you stayed here all the way to the end, I really appreciate it. Again, there was a lot to say about this album, so it ran kind of lengthy, but if you stayed to the end, I really appreciate it. Or you're watching it in segments, longer videos. Sometimes I'll watch in segments. I'll watch a little bit, come back to it later. You can do that with this video too, as well. But check it out. Check the links below. I'm going to put all the links below so that you can find where to buy the album. You can find links to the videos. You can find links to where to buy the Damascus CD as well. Again, if you like prog rock, you want to check that one out too. But again, kudos to Tom McKeown for putting out such an epic progressive rock masterpiece that will take you on a journey and not disappoint you. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. And as always, as I always do, I encourage all my listeners to follow the light that shines out of the darkness. God bless everyone.